Hi, welcome to Sabbath School Daily, where we have been studying from this lesson right here, God's Mission, My Mission. This week we're studying from lesson number 11, which has the title Mission to the Unreached, Part 2, and today is Sunday's lesson, which has the title Mission to Regions Beyond. Today's lesson begins at Matthew chapter 14, verse 34, which is where we find that Jesus had taken his disciples to this land called Gennesaret, and then in Matthew 15, verse 21, he departs to the region of Tyre and Sidon. If you'd like to hear a little bit more about this region of Tyre and Sidon, I encourage you to read the 3 different texts of the Bible that are mentioned in today's lesson that reveal different interactions in the history of Israel with these other regions of Tyre and of Sidon. And so you'll find that in Judges chapter 3, verse 1 through 6. You'll find that in 1 Kings chapter 5, verse 1 through 12, and then 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 1 through 6. And so these texts are going to show you how these regions, the people that lived there, they were completely different from the children of Israel. They did not worship the God of heaven. They worshiped different pagan gods. And the Lord, through the interactions between Israel and these lands, the Lord used those interactions, he used those situations in order to edify, in order to educate, in order to mature the children of Israel. Now, not always did they learn the lessons that they should have learned. Actually, when you go back to the history of Israel, you'll see that they constantly fell to the wrong side. Look at what the second paragraph of today's lesson says. From Judges chapter 3, verse 1 through 6, we see that these ancient peoples were used by God to test the Israelites' faith. Unfortunately, God's people failed that test too, at least in this instance. And they took their daughters to be their wives and gave their daughters to their sons, and they served their gods. And that's in Judges chapter 3, verse 6. Thus, right from the start, these people were a stumbling block to Israel. Now, the reason why the lesson is bringing this to the forefront of the context of our lesson is because Jesus, regardless of what these nations had represented to Israel in the past, Jesus still goes there and witnesses to them. He still goes there and ministers to them. He provides salvation to them. These are people that had been a stumbling block to the Israelites in the past. And here, the Savior of humanity is giving them a chance. The Savior of humanity is showing his disciples that these two should be reached. These two should be preached to. These two should be offered salvation and goodness and kindness and forgiveness. So I want you to notice that this is what's going on here. That's why the lesson is mentioning these two cities. The second last paragraph of today's lesson says, "Yet, despite the history of paganism and idolatry and their negative influence on the chosen nation, Jesus still brought his disciples to these places. In this way, he initiated them in a cross-cultural urban mission, confronting their bias and bigotry, and modeled for his followers holistic urban mission to all cultures and nationalities. Many challenges face the Adventist urban missionary. Among them include health and environmental concerns. Others would include the high cost of living, racism, bigotry, nationalism, and constraints on religious freedom and expression. Nevertheless, despite these obstacles, we must work for the cities." And finally, the lesson proposes a question. What can you do to help those involved in urban ministry? So I think that all of this is really good for us to lay the foundation to what we're looking at this week. Christ went into these difficult areas, these difficult regions. He didn't neglect them. He didn't abandon them. He provided a way out. And so the question is, what can we do that is similar? What can we learn from his example as to how we're supposed to reach places like this today? Friends, there are places that I don't want to go. Look, it might not seem like it, but I'm an introvert, right? I usually describe myself as an extroverted introvert. I'm not a shy person, but I am an introvert. And if I could just stay in my own place, doing my own thing, with my own peace and silence, that is the perfect day for me. But I know that that's not what life is all about. I know that I can't live that way. I know that I have to step out of my comfort zone, deal with people that I would rather not, be in situations that I would rather not. Why? Because I feel that that's what God has called us to do. I feel that that's what he's called me to do. And I feel that he's given me the gifts and the talents to do so. So who am I to say no to God? I can't. Again, this isn't about comfort. It's not about convenience. It's about what we're called to do in this life for the life to come. And so again, there are places that I don't want to go. There are cities that I don't want to go to. There are events that I don't want to go to. There are situations that I would really prefer not to be involved with. But it's not about me. It's not about my preferences. It's not about my desire. And that's true for all of us. It's not about you and I. It's not about us. It's about God. And it's about his salvational efforts for our planet, for our world. when we get to heaven, all things will be made perfect. The things that need to be fixed in us will be fixed. The things that will be explored to more potential will be explored to more potential. But while we're still here on this side of eternity, this story is not about us. It's about what God can do through us for others. And so let him use you. Allow him to remove you from your comfort zone, to rip you out from what's comfortable, from what's known, into the unknown, which is where he is at. God doesn't reside here in the safe and nice and comfy, friends. God resides out there in the wild, and we're called to join him, to use what he's given us in spite of the difficulties, in spite of what the lesson has just named here, right? The challenges, the high cost of living, the racism, the bigotry, the nationalism, the constraints on religious freedom and expression. We live in an imperfect world, but we serve a powerful, omnipotent God. And so there is no true challenge. When we put ourselves in his hands, we become instruments of omnipotence. And so allow the Lord to use you that way. Study this week's lesson. Look at Christ as the best example that God could give us in order to learn what we should do, how we should do. And I'm sure that he will help you grow in that. Again, don't forget to study, look up the Bible verses, fill out the questions. That will help you a lot. Also, please remember to comment down below with any questions, any comments. I'd love to interact with you. Please remember to like, to share, and to subscribe to our videos. We release one every day, and I hope to see you again here tomorrow for another Sabbath School Daily.